Bam! What's up, guys? How you doing? Good morning. I'm super excited for this morning. You guys are looking good. What's up? Just going through some of our guests. Tucker, what's up? Adrian, Brett, Sherilyn, Chris, Cliff, Emilio, what's happening, brother? How you doing? Dan, John, Josh, guys, we're excited. We got about 25 people on. RG, welcome, brother. Can you hear me all right?
Can hear you just fine. Thank you.
I love it. Guys, this whole week I've been pretty pumped, RG, just being super open, and everyone knows in the tribe that's how we roll. I'm really excited to take a minute and just break it down with you. And first of all, let me give a little bit of an intro for those of you that haven't met RG, haven't heard about RG, or been infected by his attitude, if you will. And I use that word infected in certainly a positive way, but I was reading over your bio, RG, and one of the things that got me so fired up was that right there. So those of you guys that are new to the industry may not know this guy right here, but this guy right here is A.D. Kessler. He wrote the book A Fortune at Your Feet, and A.D. Kessler was RG's personal mentor years and years ago. So I can tell you right now that anything that comes out of RG's mouth, because if this guy set you off, he set you off on the right track. And I got this book all kind of earmarked, and I've got it marked up. And I was actually just reviewing it this morning. And let me just read like some of the words from like A.D. Kessler, your mentor, because this stuff just rings through to me and brings back tons of memories as I got started in early 2000s. And this, I think, applies, RG. And I kind of want to kick it off with this. But A.D. Kessler, page 29 in his book, A Fortune at Your Feet, says, find a property with problem ownership. Define the owner's problem in terms of needs. Determine what those needs are and find ways to fulfill them. And then structure a transaction that provides people benefits. You can profit as easily with commercial as well as residential. He's got this other comment in here that talks about success comes in cans, failure is in can'ts. And I go through RG, I see your stuff, and I see your attitude and your approach in everything you do right here. So let's open up and just talk to me about this background and really what what this guy did and how it set you off.
So quick, a lot on my 1996, end of 96, first 97, finalized my divorce. So there was that massive speed bump that a lot of people go through.
Right.
I was absolutely lost on what to do. My background was in life insurance and financial planning, but you know, when you go through a divorce, it's never continual. So I was reading Barnes and Noble, reading books on success. Then I realized a lot of successful people owned real estate. So I started reading books on real estate. I found that, A Fortune at Your Feet. At the back of the book was an 800 number. I had a cricket phone because I had no credit and no money. And I made a call to that. And this is where I believe that the infinite aligns everything. A.D. Kessler, Dr. Kessler answered the phone. And he picked it up. And I said, hey, I'm reading this book. Yes, young man, that's mine. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, great. What do I need to do? And he goes, read the book, get back to me. So I got back to him, phenomenal, read it in just a few days because I was just two things. One, I had bills to pay, and two, I was hungry, and so needed to do something. And he took me on as one of his students. We had a phone call every Tuesday from 2:30 to 3:30 for 1 year, and he taught me everything. And then he taught me how to do seminars, and then he taught me, and it just continued on. My daughters, he considered surrogate granddaughters, and we just had a very phenomenal relationship.
Dude, that story is awesome. The fact that he answered the phone and then just took you under your wing and you just started rolling. Now, you know, he's from my hometown, San Diego.
Oh, serious? I didn't know you were from there. I thought you were a Utah boy like me.
No, I grew up like 15 minutes from this cat. So anytime I read through his book and I hear his stories and he talks about, you know, buying in the path of progress or buy on the water side or buy on the hillside and some of this stuff, like, so it's funny because one of the very first deals I did was in downtown Salt Lake, kind of in the Marmalade Hill area, like 7th North, 3rd West.
Right.
And I just felt the avenues kind of creeping a little bit further and further west. And that Marmalade area was just kind of changing a little bit. And then we had the Olympics going in. So everything down there with the gateway was starting to move just a little bit north. So I just felt like this convergence, if you will, coming from the east and then coming from the south, coming over into my Marmalade area. And it's that right there. It's that right there, like buying the path of progress that, you know, that kept ringing true to me. And guys, like, those of you are watching right now, RG's gonna like drop a couple of nuggets like along the way. And I know every week we get into some of this stuff, and I always say, look, if there's just one thing, that you can add to your arsenal, to your quiver of arrows, then just write it down and maybe just use some of the other stuff as noise, but take some notes and say, okay, what's the one thing I'm going to go ahead and implement? RG, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about briefly, and by the way, everyone needs to right now friend RG on Facebook. So look him up right now, put it in there, RG Williams, friend him, comment on his stuff, reach out to him, develop this relationship the same way AD Kessler reached out to him one-on-one. He'll reach out to you one-on-one as well and make your life better. So first of all, do that. The other thing I want to say, RG, is you go to your Facebook page and you see a lot of, and my wife, it's funny, last night I'm in bed. Sorry, man, but this is how I get. And she turns to me and she goes, Mike, what's your grit level? What's your grit score? And, you know, and I posted that in the community today because that's a lot about what it's about right now, RG. Like a lot of it's grit, a lot of it's behavior. And you start with that when you train, and you start with that and it flows through everything that you do. So just talk to me about that and how you've developed it. And then number two, I've got to turn to these tribe members right here and say, guys, we got to up the grit. And let's start with that. By the way, I love the guitars in the background. I'd love to hear you play. I'd love to hear you play sometime for sure. But talk to me about that, because I think it's so important. How do we up the grit level?
I'm going to go with the basis that I've always gone back to, and that's my goals. You know, everybody, you hear that thing of what's your why, on and on. I push it down into when I can get and I love that. I had to take notes on grit. So thanks to your wife, right? So many of us are now going to be that much better. And I like you, married way up. So, you know, thank for the wives.
For sure.
I always focus down on the things that distract me are always outside of my goals. So I had to come back to the goals and stay just 100% focused on that. What that does for me is I'm always looking at it, is this going to add to my goals, or is it going to take away from? If it takes away from, I'm not interested. If you're in a conversation with me and it takes away from my goals, I'll be nice, I'll be polite, I'll be professional, but I'll find my way out of that conversation. Yeah. So when I go down into it and driving, I got into real estate not because I was fascinated about architecture. I love all of that. But a house is a house is a house. I got involved with real estate because real estate generates enough capital to support my goals. And so as I started looking all of that, the whole thing I started thinking is, when the time gets ugly, when the personal time gets ugly, when the world time gets ugly, when the family time gets ugly, and we all go through that, that doesn't mean it's bad. It just gets ugly. Then I come back to the goals. I was always reminded years back, a gentleman said that Vince Lombardi always started his season out with, gentlemen, this is a football. We are going to practice the basics. We are going to be in blocking, tackling, passing, rushing. We're going to go to the basics. Then we can get fancy. Then we can add color. And I always go, what's my vanilla? And then I can put my 31 flavors together. And I'm always coming right back to the basics going, okay, so right now we're in just such a crazy uncharted territory. Yeah, we can look back on 08, 9, 10. We can see some of that, but I don't think we're going to be able to bounce into the same things we did then for another few months after we get lifted out of the virus or the homestay. And so right now we're just seeing so many people that are scrambling that they've never been here before. I hear comments on Facebook that drive me nuts. Oh man, I'm so tired of having my kids at home. What? Are you kidding me? I get to have my babies around me all day long. I get to teach them. I get to work with them. I get to mold their brains, mold their emotions, mold all that kind of stuff. And yet people are out there frustrated that they're home. Yeah. So I go back to the goals. That's my grit. Always right back to the goals. The goals are driving. How many doors do I need in order to get X amount of money in order to get this goal? How do you want to put this together? What's your retirement plan? On and on. And so that's how I drive it back.
And let me take it there. So I think a lot of us in the tribe, like we have a pretty good understanding for what it is, right? But it's like we just get smacked in the face and then have to find the ability to get back on track. It's like we have this track that's here, but it's like life, this, that. Do you do something? I ask this for a personal level too, and I train and teach on this, and I say, you know, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a piece of gum. Maybe it's some AirPods. Maybe it's a fancy hat you put on. Maybe it's a drive on your Harley around whatever canyon it is. Is there something you do that gives you the ability to snap back in and find perspective, whether it's a small thing or a larger thing? Because I think personally, I think there's got to be sometimes something tangible that we can do. I found like I say, like gum works for me and AirPods work for me. And sometimes just when I'm in my car, if I feel lack of focus, if I get in my car and have some goals in front of me, the fact that it's weird, but if I have movement, when things are moving around me, my brain starts to connect. Is there something that you do specifically? I got the goals, but as life comes, what do you do to recheck?
Two things. You brought one, and I'll expand on it a little bit, but one is riding my Harleys. The other part of expanding on that is getting out and just tinkering on them, even if I'm just polishing the chrome, because what that does is that gives me into a methodical routine that I'm, wax on, wax off. It's just the movement of and seeing how I'm bringing it back to light and taking the water spots off. The other part is I have certain music that I always turn on. And in fact, this morning, as I was having some challenges with just logging on, I get this little, brown paper bag hyperventilating mode that comes in going, oh man, I'm going to let the tribe and mic down and everything. I can't get into Zoom. And I'm just doing all this insanity. And I just reached over and I clicked on, you remember years back over at the Southtown Mall, they put up the big white tent. There was that great big horse show that was going on, came out of Canada. So I have that soundtrack. And because there were memories created with my family at that event, I turned that music on. And what it does is just takes me right back into that family calmness. My family's my anchor. So I'm always driving back into what goes. When it comes into the real estate side and business side, it's just basics. It's like, wait a minute. Why am I focused on what doesn't work when I've been blessed with talents that do work? The thing that most investors forget about, and maybe some don't even know, is real estate is simply about price and terms, period. There is nothing different. It's price or terms. Now, you need your price, I'll work my terms. You're flexible on your price, then we can work different terms and we can just play that. So when I'm talking to them, that first question is to get me, are they flexible? No, we need to unload this right now. We're 2 weeks away from a foreclosure. We already got this, whatever. Now I get their urgency.
We talked about a little bit of this last week, understanding motivation behind the transaction. When you negotiate terms, now again, this is new for a lot of folks, right?
Right.
What are you talking about? Arju, when you talk terms, what are you digging into? What are the questions you're asking on terms?
Well, terms for me, that's talking the length of the mortgage, what's left on the payment. Is it a 30-year? Was it a 15? Where did that come in? What's your monthlies? What's your setup? Do you have a first, second? I'm just getting down to the financial nitty-gritties of what they have. Then I look at it and going, okay, well, for me to make this work, then I have to be in a position. So I run on things sometimes. Back in 08 and 09, when we saw everything falling out, we had overvalued properties. I was okay buying high and selling low. Now, that's just the opposite of what people think. But what I changed it up to is that we had a $100,000 property and I was buying it for $80,000 from them, but I changed the interest rate on my exit seller finance with a new buyer coming in, and I increased the interest rate due to their lack of credit or whatever. And what that did is it balanced out my payment.
And I'm telling you, I think the opportunities are rampant to come. And I specifically think the opportunities tend to be because right now, the last, year and a half, 2 years, there have been some extremely favorable interest rates, some favorable financing that's out there, but what would appear to be little to no equity. Let's say somebody bought one in the last year and a half. Well, once they sell through agents or whatever, there's not a whole lot there, right? So
Correct.
To come to this option and to begin to consider this is the option that does exactly that. It gets them more cash. Hey, I'm in an opportunity now based on these terms that I can pay you $10,000 or whatever it is to help this transition and help it move forward.